Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This week we're going to take a very special look at an Izzet commander new to the scene. This is Mizzix of the Izmagnus. Like her other two-colored counterparts, this goblin wizard has her own special ability that involves experience counters. Mizzix's ability triggers whenever you cast an instant or a sorcery with a converted mana cost greater than the amount of experience counters you currently possess. For each of those experience counters, instants and sorcery spells we cast cost one colorless mana less. The Izzet color pairings have always been a very strong archetype in EDH. But interestingly enough, oftentimes the question becomes, who's better, Mizzix or Melek? Both of these Izzet wizards are spellcasters. They want spells over creature. Both of them tend to lend themselves very well to combo, but the way it breaks down is how they win. Melek is more focused on Storm, being able to copy spells off the top of his library, whereas Mizzix is looking for more ambitious ways to win. Please don't misunderstand me, I think Mizzix or Melek go well in each other's decks, or vice versa, or however you want to say it. Melek would never turn away Mizzix because reducing spells is always great, and Mizzix would never turn away Melek because who doesn't want to cast spells twice? Having had a chance to play both, I really have a hard time picking between the two. Both of them tend to have one specific way of winning, Melek with Storm cards, and Mizzix with Firemind Insight into a combo, but frankly they're both really enjoyable. If I had a gun to my head, I think I would probably pick Mizzix, mostly because she costs less than Melek, and in the end that can sometimes be the difference between a win and a loss. So enough about the commanders, we know we're going to look at Mizzix, so let's look at some cards that make Mizzix who she is. Pretty much when you're building Mizzix, you want to sort of keep in mind the same principle you do with Birthing Pod. You want to have a specific curve in mind so that you hit certain points. That being said, a wide variety of X spells are very good in Mizzix, as they can be functionally larger when they needed, or be used early on to get an extra counter. A card like Stroke of Genius offers the deck a lot of versatility. If you have enough counters, you can often cast it for only just a blue to draw a few cards. Or, if the situation allows for it, you can tap out and gain an experience counter and cards. The same can be said for almost any X spell in the deck. Comet Storm, Blue Sun Zenith, Red Sun Zenith, any X spell, especially ones that have shuffled themselves into library clauses, are very good for Mizzix. One of the most bizarre, and what I think is probably the reason you're here, interactions with Mizzix, is that she reduces the cost of Buyback. The most famous Buyback card, and one we'll get into further later on in the video, is Reiterate. I'll just leave this on the screen for a second, but I'm pretty sure you can figure out why this is going to be good. One of the best draw spells is also debatably one of the strongest spells in the deck. Tezzeret's Gambit is an incredible card which we can theoretically cast for 2 life to get 2 cards and gain possibly 2 experience counters. Using the Proliferate mechanic, we are able to generate additional experience counters without being restricted by having to have a greater converted mana cost. This doesn't mean that you're going to want to run every card that has Proliferate in it, but it's certainly a worthwhile mechanic to look at for the deck. You can also run the typical creature spell package that tends to go really well hand in hand with spell-slinging decks. Talaran Sky Summoner, Young Pyromancer, Gutter Snipe. All of these creatures provide additional benefits when we cast a lot of spells, which frankly is something we're going to be doing. Moving back to draw spells, if you're looking to increase your converted mana cost so that you can hit more experience counters easily, Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise are great additions to the deck. Not only do we get the benefit of being able to play them since this is EDH and therefore not banned, chances are you're going to be able to cast them without having to delve away valuable cards in our graveyard. Dualcaster Mage is one of those cards that I love to play but often don't have enough of a reason to put one in the deck. Tapping out to cast a big spell and then having to save 3 mana to use Dualcaster Mage to copy it can sometimes be very restrictive. Thankfully, Mizzix eliminates the earlier part, making all of our spells relatively cheap, so casting a 3 mana creature to copy a spell isn't that bad. Speaking of caster mages, I guess you could probably run Snapcaster Mage. He's kinda good for a spell deck. I don't know, I'll leave it up to you guys. You're gonna also want to run a bit of a recursion package. Arcanomancer and Mystic Retrieval can help alleviate some of the stress of having to decide whether or not to cast a spell early on. These spells will allow us to return them to our hand and therefore get a second cast when it's important and when we need them. It also wouldn't hurt to run some mana generating spells like High Tide or Reality Spasm, maybe even Turnabout. All of these are really good spells to generate us critical amounts of mana when we need to go off. The best part is they work really well in tandem, so if you have a couple in your hand when you're about to go off, it's really not that bad. Having the option to generate 1 billion mana to either force our opponent to draw 1 million cards with Blue Sun Zenith or combo off is always a good thing to have. Alright, we talked about it earlier on, but very briefly. Reiterate is part of a 3-card combo that basically wins on the spot with Mizzix on the field. Assuming Mizzix is on the field and you have 4 experience counters, the combo essentially involves Reiterate, one of the red ritual effects like Seething Song, Desperate Ritual, or Pyretic Ritual, and everyone's favorite modern card, Lightning Bolt. Assuming you have 3 red mana open initially, you cast one of your anthems, copy it with Reiterate using the Buyback to get Reiterate back to your hand, go infinite, then using Reiterate again, cast Lightning Bolt a million times, buying it back with Reiterate again and again and again. This might be a bit of a lackluster way to win, but there's something kinda satisfying using a 1 mana 3 damage spell, which usually isn't that great in EDH, to kill an entire table. Chances are if you're playing Mizzix, you will be running a few counterspells, as the only way Mizzix tends to win is through combo, and let's face it, you have to protect your combo. Few notable counterspells to run: Rewind, Swan Song, just anything that's interesting that isn't Mana Drain, Force of Will, or Counterspell. You could also try running Mizzix without any counterspells and let me know how that goes in the comments below. Anyway gang, I hope you enjoyed my video on Mizzix of the Izmagnus. There's a lot of ways to build her, there's a lot of spells that are really good with her. Unfortunately, I don't feel like there's enough time for me to cover each and every spell with her. There are so many good spells that even if this video is half an hour, I don't think I would even scratch the surface. All in all, if you're looking for a deck that doesn't really prioritize creatures and really looks for a huge number of spells and just going crazy and doing silly, ridiculous things like the Spirit of EDH really is meant to do, she's a lot of fun, a goblin to boot, and probably one of the more interesting generals out of the Commander 2015 sets. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You guys have been so supportive of me. It's awesome. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.